Studies show that 58% of freelancers end up not getting paid for their work. I would suggest never work on any project till the time you get your advance or you get your purchase order for your project. The hardest part of freelancing is getting paid, either on your entire project or even receiving your payment on time. So today I'll share with you the most systematic way of getting your payment as a freelancer. Watch this video till the end. If you're just starting as a freelancer and this is one of your initial projects, and do not initiate your work without any advance payment, because as I mentioned earlier, your client will have the intention to pay you your advance amount if they intend to pay you. The main question is, what if the client does not want to work with me? Well, the client will never want to pay you, so it's better to avoid such projects and not even get into it, instead of working on the entire project and just keep waiting for the payment, which mostly it never happens. I will advise you to request and come up with an understanding to get a 50% advance payment, then a 30% payment for your, let's say 50% of your work that you've completed, and then the rest 30% or 20% of your payment at the end of the project. That way you will have more in your hand instead of waiting for the rest 50%, because most of the times you would also have spent on things and spent on your time and your efforts. Waiting for that 50% for months is going to be a crazy hectic time for you. So avoid doing that. The other thing that freelancers mostly forget is the payment cycle that happens from a client. It is minimum of 30 days to infinity. Sometimes the payment comes after 1 year, sometimes it comes after 6 months. I'm going to cover all that. Now, if you are an established and registered freelancer, then the best way is to get through the purchase order system. Now, without a purchase order, if you work on any project, your clients will also not take you seriously, because they will, of course, feel that you are unprofessional enough. It's always better to request for a purchase order, and there's a system to it. So how it goes is, once the project is decided and understood upon, the freelancer should send in a pro forma invoice. A pro forma invoice is where the entire estimate of your work is mentioned, the details of the entire payment structure, your work deliverables, the deadlines, all the details, everything is mentioned in that, including the terms and conditions like your advance payment, your 30% next payment, and your 20% payment at the end. All these are to be mentioned in a pro forma invoice. Once that pro forma invoice is sent to the client will then work upon raising a purchase order. Now, the purchase order is a document which is basically internally in the organization. Let's say you're dealing with the marketing department. Since they require some creative work to be done by you, now they will request for the funds to be allocated beforehand so that there is no hustle bustle later. And for that, there are processes of approvals and the funds that has to be paid to you later by the company, by the client, will have to be allocated beforehand. And the approvals of that have to go internally. If your client is the marketing manager of the company, that marketing manager has to take approvals from the boss, from the CEO or whoever on the senior role, and also have to communicate it to the accounts department. That is where this document called purchase order is released from the accounts department, confirming that this much amount is allocated for this certain freelancer. And that way the payment later becomes very smooth. Once you receive the purchase order, you should then think of initiating your project, because there are times where you'll have to spend money on purchasing some raw materials or purchasing some equipments for your work. So in that manner, you'll have to now initiate with your work. Now be ready that it's going to take at least 30 days to 90 days or even sometimes 6 months to get your final payment. And that also happens because sometimes it is the laid backness of the employee who is the point of contact with you. Maybe that marketing manager hasn't even forwarded your invoice to the accounts department yet, just because maybe the person is either very busy and did not feel this is important or anything like that, or the relation did not really work out. So there are endless reasons to it, but that is where the energy of a freelancer mostly goes down the drain, following up for payments. And hence this process of having a purchase order really helps, and everything is smooth even for that point of contact like the marketing manager, because all he has to do is now confirm that the project has been completed and the payment has to be released from the account department to the freelancer or the agency, right? So especially for creative people, this sounds very boring, and most of you will avoid it, and you'll come into problems, and later you will come into learning for this entire thing, because I myself did not take it seriously in the initial years. And then once I started facing problems, that's where I started looking for solutions. And the solutions I could not even find on the internet, rather, and it took a lot of years to really understand and to survive. Raising your invoice the earliest as possible. Now, mostly, let's say if you have a good relation with your client, you can even start raising your invoice in the first, let's say 50% of your stage of work. Now, that could be when the concept is clear, when the concept is confirmed, or that could be the 50% of the artworks have been submitted. There are different ways where the invoice can be raised a little before, because everybody knows that the invoice to getting the payment will take at least 30 days. That way you save a lot of days, because mostly the standard is once the project is completed, only after that you're supposed to submit the invoice, and that depends on how long do you take. And that's the next part, where if you want to get your payment really quick, you got to finish your work quickly. Time is of the essence. So the sooner you finish your project, that is the number of days you will deploy for that project. And the more days you save, the more time you save and finish the project sooner, you'll get the payment sooner as well. And you'll also end up saving number of days and time for other projects as well. Within your terms of understanding, you should also mention the number of edits. Keep a limit to about 2 edits free, because there are times where you have to redo some work. It cannot go on infinite number of edits, otherwise you'll not be able to take up any other project. Having a clear list of deliverables is extremely important. Even the file format, the size, the dimension. Is it, let's say if it is a graphic for the phone, is it going to be vertical format or horizontal format? Because mostly what happens is there are times when you have not confirmed the dimensions. Later, once you have completed your project, the client comes back and says, oh, I did not want in this format. I wanted on the exact opposite format of it. And then you have to do the entire changes again and again. So that's again redoing an exercise. So be very clear about your deliverables. Have a very tight set of calculation. You should know what your profits are like. You should know where you have to spend. You should know how much payments are coming in, how you're going to roll in the money, and how many months can you survive now with the payment that you have right now, or with the kind of funds that you have right now. It's always best to have at least 3 months of reserved money, so that you don't get into that level of stress for money, because that is the worst stress. So to understand how to charge your customers correctly, here is the video. I see you, and I wish you the best. Bye.